Does your mind feel like an internet browser with 30 tabs open at the same time? One for work, one for finances, one for family, another for an old worry, plus 5 for social media conversations you still need to answer. Each tab playing a different sound, consuming your memory, draining your battery. Do you end the day feeling a mental exhaustion so deep that even choosing a movie or deciding what to have for dinner seems like a monumental task? One more decision that your brain simply refuses to process. If the answer is yes, you are not alone. This is the silent diagnosis of modern life, the unspoken epidemic of mental burnout. It is the constant static in the back of your mind, the feeling of always being on, unable to truly relax, even in moments of silence. And if you already feel this way, pay close attention. The astrological energy of the next 48 hours, starting this Saturday with the moon's entry into Gemini, will not relieve this pressure. On the contrary, it acts as an accelerator, a stimulant for a mind that is already operating at its limit. The energy of Gemini increases our need to communicate, to learn, to process information, to socialize. For a system that is already overloaded, this extra impulse can be the trigger that pushes mental fatigue into a complete burnout, leaving you depleted and even more anxious. But here is the good news, the reason why we are here today. The same energy that can cause the short circuit also creates the perfect opportunity for a total system reset. In these 48 hours, you have a clear and conscious choice. Be a victim of this acceleration and end the weekend completely drained, or use this moment as a catalyst to apply a mental detox protocol that will cleanse your system and restore your focus and your peace. What follows is not a mystical guide, but a practical first aid manual for your mind. In the next few minutes, we will explain the anatomy of this overload, expose the pattern of false productivity into which most people will fall, and give you 3 concrete and direct actions to reduce the noise, calm the anxiety, and transform the overload into clarity. You will learn to be the curator of your own mental feed, to actively choose which tabs in your mind you click on, instead of being a slave to internal and external notifications. Let's begin your detox. To combat the overload, we first need to understand its anatomy. What is actually happening in your brain and in your nervous system when the moon enters Gemini? This is not a mystical event, but an astrological trigger that amplifies a very real problem of our modern environment: chronic overstimulation. If you identify with the following symptoms, understand that there is nothing wrong with you. You are just experiencing the collision between an ancient energy and a hyper-connected world. First, let's analyze the psychological effects. The most immediate symptom you will notice is a non-stop mental restlessness. Your mind, which is already naturally active, seems to gain a new speed. It will jump from one idea to another, from one worry to another, from one curiosity to another, without being able to land and delve deeply into any of them. This creates the dangerous illusion that you are capable of doing several things at once: answering an email while listening to a podcast and planning what to do over the weekend. But neuroscience is clear: multitasking is a myth. What your brain is actually doing is switching focus extremely quickly, a process known as task switching, which is incredibly inefficient and consumes an enormous amount of mental energy. The energy of Gemini increases the speed of these focus shifts, making you feel productive, when in fact you are just fragmenting your attention and depleting your cognitive resources. Directly linked to this comes the second symptom: an almost obsessive compulsion for notifications. Your phone vibrates, and you feel a physical need, an almost irresistible pull to look. A new message, a new like, a new email. Each notification is a small dose of dopamine, a stimulus of novelty that the Gemini mind, hungry for information, simply loves. The problem is that this vicious cycle trains your brain for a state of constant alert and instant gratification. Your ability to maintain deep focus on a single task for a long period is systematically destroyed. You become reactive, a puppet of external stimuli, instead of being the proactive master of your own focus. The moon in Gemini amplifies this need to be connected, which, if not managed consciously, turns into chronic anxiety. The third psychological symptom is a notable increase in social anxiety, specifically the fear of missing out. As Gemini rules social connections, information, and networks, during these 48 hours, you may feel an internal pressure to be everywhere, to know everything that is happening, to participate in every conversation. Seeing photos of friends at an event you didn't go to can generate greater discomfort than usual. This is the moon, your emotions and your need for belonging. In Gemini, the sign of social media. In action, it is an emotional need to be part of the collective information flow, which can lead to decisions based on the fear of exclusion instead of your authentic desire for rest or solitude. And this mental overload is not just a psychological event. It has direct and measurable physical consequences, as your body always pays the price for your mind's stress. The first physical symptom is muscle tension in the upper body. The sign of Gemini astrologically rules the shoulders, arms, hands, and the nervous system. The excess mental energy and anxiety accumulate in these areas. Pay attention right now. Are your shoulders tensed up towards your ears? Is your neck stiff? Are you clenching your jaw? It is your physical body holding the stress of your accelerated mind. Also, observe your breathing. When the mind is anxious and processing multiple stimuli, breathing tends to become short and shallow, located in the upper chest. This keeps your body in a fight or flight state of alert, even if you are just sitting at your desk. This chronic shallow breathing is one of the main causes of tiredness, fatigue, and mental fog. And finally, the most obvious consequence of the mental processor overheating: tension headaches. That dull, persistent headache that feels like a band tightening around your skull is a clear sign from your brain begging for a break, a sign that the processing volume has exceeded the system's capacity. Now that we understand the neurological and physical symptoms of the overload that the moon in Gemini can amplify, our investigation turns to collective behavior. What is the default response of most people when they feel this mental acceleration and this anxiety? The answer reveals one of the most inefficient, exhausting, and deceptive patterns of our modern culture: false productivity. This is a behavior so ingrained that many of us don't even realize we are trapped in it. And the energy of Gemini, if not observed, acts as an accelerator for this vicious cycle. Most people, upon feeling the restlessness and the accelerated mind, will fall into what productivity experts call the illusion of movement. They will mistakenly interpret the anxiety as a sign that they need to do more and faster to feel in control. They will try to relieve the internal pressure by answering more emails at a frantic pace, scrolling through the news feed to feel informed, starting more conversations in messaging apps to feel connected, jumping from one task to another in a desperate attempt to get it all done. They will dangerously and fundamentally confuse the act of being busy with the act of being productive. What happens on a neurological level during this process is a vicious cycle of self-sabotage. The mind, already overstimulated by the energy of Gemini, receives even more stimuli. Each new notification, each new piece of information, each new task added to the mental list acts as another dose of caffeine for a system that is already on the verge of a panic attack. The brain, in an effort to cope with the flood of data, begins to operate in a mode of continuous partial attention. It never delves deeply into anything, only skims the surface of everything in a state of constant alert. Neuroscience calls the cost of jumping from one task to another attention residue. A part of your cognitive capacity remains stuck on the previous task, making you less efficient at the new task. Under the energy of Gemini, this task switching becomes so rapid that your mind becomes covered in this residue, resulting in superficial and error-prone work. Anxiety in this cycle does not decrease, it paradoxically increases, as the list of things to do never ends and the feeling of not having done anything important deepens. Focus does not improve. It fragments with each second, destroying the capacity for deep, strategic, and creative thought. The person enters a state of constant reactivity where they are no longer in control of their attention, but are a victim of the incoming stimuli, a puppet of notifications. The inevitable result of this behavioral pattern is the deepening of mental fatigue and a complete lack of significant results. At the end of the 48-hour period, the person who has followed the path of false productivity will be completely depleted, with the feeling of having run a marathon but without having moved from the spot. They will have been busy but not productive. They will have been reactive but not creative. They will have moved a lot but will not have progressed. The long-term consequence of this pattern is burnout, chronic anxiety, and a life of stagnation disguised as constant movement. And herein lies the conscious choice that this guide offers you. The mental detox approach is counterintuitive, but it is the only effective one. Instead of accelerating, along with the external and internal noise, you learn to create strategic pauses of silence. Instead of trying to process more information, you learn to filter and to focus on what is essential. It is the choice to take sovereign control of your focus, instead of being a victim of your own accelerated mind and the incessant demands of the digital world. This choice is not about doing less. It is about doing better. It is about understanding that in a period of high mental voltage like that of the moon in Gemini, the true power is not in speed, but in direction. And to have a clear direction, you first need to reduce the noise. Most people will spend the weekend running in circles, depleting their vital energy and feeling frustrated. You, by applying the protocol we will see next, have the opportunity to emerge from this period not just with your sanity intact, but with a renewed clarity and focus, ready to act much more effectively when the energy stabilizes. If you recognized yourself in the pattern of false productivity and in the anatomy of overload, the good news is that there is an antidote. It is not a magic solution, but rather a practical protocol of mental hygiene, designed to calm your nervous system, break the cycle of reactivity, and give you back control over your most precious asset, your focus. What follows are 3 direct actions for you to apply in the next 48 hours. Think of them not as more things to do on your already packed list, but as spaces of not doing that will heal and restore your mind. The first action, the information fast. The first and most powerful action of our detox is the most counterintuitive of all. To calm the mind, you need to stop feeding it with the constant noise of the digital world. An overloaded brain does not need more stimuli or a new productivity technique. It needs silence. It needs space to be able to process, archive, and discard what it has already consumed. This practice is like giving your brain a period of digestive rest, instead of continuing to push more food into a stomach that is already full. The action is as follows: schedule as an unmissable appointment, an information fast in your calendar. Choose a block of time in these next 48 hours. You can start with 1 hour, but 2 or 3 hours would be ideal, and commit to a total digital detox. This means, and this part is crucial, turning off all notifications on your phone directly in the settings, not just silencing them, but deactivating them. Close all email and social media tabs on your computer. If necessary, put your phone in another room to remove the temptation. During this period, your only job is to exist without the input of new information. Read a fiction book, listen to instrumental music, cook a meal paying attention to the process, walk in nature, or simply do absolutely nothing. The goal is to allow your brain, perhaps for the first time in a long time, to operate without being constantly interrupted. In the first few minutes, you will feel discomfort, a withdrawal, the almost uncontrollable urge to check something. Resist. Breathe through it. It is your dopamine-addicted brain asking for the next hit. By overcoming this impulse, you will be retraining your brain for deep focus and drastically lowering your levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. The second action: regulating the nervous system with box breathing. Anxiety and the accelerated mind are not just a mental event, they are a physiological state. They keep your autonomic nervous system stuck in the sympathetic mode, that of fight or flight. The second action is a neurological tool to hack this state and force relaxation, using your own breath as a remote control for your nervous system. The technique is known as box breathing, used by special forces and elite athletes to maintain calm under extreme pressure. It's simple, and you can do it right now. Sit comfortably with your spine straight. If possible, close your eyes. First, inhale slowly through your nose, mentally counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold the air in your lungs without creating tension, counting again to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, exhale all the air slowly through your mouth or nose, counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, hold your lungs empty without effort, counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This completes one cycle. Repeat this process for at least 5 minutes. Visualize a square as you breathe, each of the 4 sides lasting 4 seconds. This rhythmic breathing regulates your vagus nerve and sends a direct signal to your brain to exit the alert mode and enter the parasympathetic mode, that of rest and digest. It is a natural tranquilizer with no side effects. It is the quickest and most effective way to calm the mental static and physical restlessness, bringing you back to the present moment. The third action, the mental drainage journal. One of the biggest causes of anxiety, especially at bedtime, is the feeling of having 1,000 things on your mind. It's the unfinished tasks, the worries about the future, the ideas you don't want to forget. Your mind keeps replaying this list in an infinite loop because it is afraid of forgetting something important. The third action is designed to empty this excess information safely and effectively. Before going to sleep, take a notebook and a pen. Call it your drainage journal. For 10 to 15 minutes, write freely everything that is on your mind. All the worries, all the ideas, all the pending tasks for the next week, all the conversations you need to have. Do not try to organize, find solutions, or write beautifully. The goal is simply to drain the chaotic content from your brain onto the paper. This simple act of externalizing thoughts informs your brain that the information is safe in an external place, and that it no longer needs to spend energy keeping all those mental tabs open. This releases an immense amount of cognitive space, reduces nighttime anxiety, and allows for a much deeper and more restorative sleep, which is ultimately the most powerful mental detox there is. And so the detox protocol is complete. The noise subsides. The 30 tabs of the mental browser begin to close one by one, leaving only what is essential. What remains is not the empty silence of boredom, but the powerful silence of focus. It is clarity. It is the feeling that your mind is no longer a wild horse running directionless in a storm of stimuli, but rather a tuned and precise instrument, ready to be used with intention and purpose. You have not eliminated the world's stimuli. That is impossible. But you have strengthened your internal filter. You have not stopped thinking, but you have learned to create spaces of silence between your thoughts. And it is in that space that wisdom and peace reside. The practices you have learned in this guide, the information fast, the conscious breathing, the mental drainage, are not solutions to be used only during a moon in Gemini. They are the fundamental tools of mental sovereignty in the information age. By applying them, you cease to be a victim of overload, a passive consumer of collective anxiety, and become the architect of your own mental environment. This is the true meaning of an awakening in the digital age. It is not about receiving more mystical information, but about learning to manage the torrent of information we already have. It is about reclaiming your right to silence, to deep focus, and to inner peace, in a world that constantly profits from your distraction and your anxiety. Power today is not in processing faster, but in choosing with wisdom what deserves to be processed by your mind. This control over your focus is the foundation of all creation, of all peace, and of all significant progress in your life. If this mental detox protocol has resonated with you, if you feel calmer, more centered, and more in control of your own mind, anchor this new sovereignty. Like this video, share it with someone you know is suffering from mental fatigue, and declare your new power, your new choice in the comments. I control my focus, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue to train our minds together for mastery and peace.